What's up guys, welcome to our 35th C++ tutorial in my series of C++ tutorials. What we're learning about today is something, we're still learning object-oriented programming, and we're still operating in the classes.cpp file, and what we're learning about is something called constructors. So actually you can just erase this rect2 object and all of its properties, which means the set values method and this down here. We don't need it. Okay, so well, imagine that you don't want the set values method, but you still want it to print out a value, because you know what the area method does is that it multiplies the value of x multiplied with the value of y, and without calling the set values method, you see that x and y will never be assigned to any values, and therefore they'll be 0. So if you try and multiply 0 with 0, you'll get some weirdo number in C++. I don't know why. We can try and remove it just to show you guys it. So if you remove it right now and hit F9, you see that it says 872415232, and I don't know why, because you know 0 multiplied by 0 shouldn't return that number, but apparently it does in C++. So anyways, no matter what number it writes, you still have to assign a value to it before it will print out the number you want it to. And as I was saying, without calling the set values method or function, the values of x and y will never be set, and therefore you get some weirdo number. So imagine that you don't want, no matter what, you just don't want the set values method for some reason. Well, then the answer is a constructor. And now I'm going to show you how to declare a constructor. First of all, you remove the set values thing right here, and you type rectangle int a and int b, just like before. And now you say x equals a, y equals b. And actually this looks very much like the set values method. There's just one change, you know, it doesn't have the data type like void, and the name is rectangle. And actually what we got right here is a constructor, and there's a reason that this constructor is named rectangle. You know, a constructor always has to have the name of the class. So if this class was named square, well, then this constructor had to be named square too. So we got a constructor called rectangle, and it has two arguments, int a and int b. And what it'll do is that it'll set the value of x equal to the value of a, and the value of y equal to the value of b. That's not hard to understand. So well, a constructor is just like a method, but it has to have the same name as the class, and it cannot have any data types like void or int or bool or string or whatever data type there is. It cannot have any data types, just the name of the class. And well, so it works just like a method. But how do we call it? Well, you know, the set values method, you call it like this: rect dot and then set values. Nope, you cannot do this. No, sorry, you cannot do that with a constructor. You have to declare it like this: two parameters for free. And now you hit F9, and you'll see that it says area 12, just like before now. And that's because that if your class has a constructor, and remember this is a constructor, then when you declare the objects, you have to put these two parameters behind the name of the object. So actually each time, if your class has a constructor, then each time you create a new object, you have to call the constructor. So and that's what we're doing right here. We call the constructor rectangle right now, and we set its values equal to 4 and 3. So but well, now what would happen if we don't put any of this constructor information behind a rect and hit F9? you get an error because it says that you cannot call or create an object without putting the well, what says is that if you have a constructor in your class, which you do, you cannot create an object without putting any parameters behind it. And well, the funny thing about a constructor is you can have more than one in the same class. You know, with a method and that kind of stuff, you can only have one method called setValues. You cannot have like 5, but you can do that if with constructors. So we're going to create a new constructor called rectangle again, and remember they always have to have the same name as the class, and this one doesn't need any values. And now if you try and remove these 4 and that stuff and hit F9 now, you see that you get no errors at all. And that's because that if you have a constructor with no arguments in it, then you don't have to put the 2 parameters behind it, because then it'll just skip right to the constructor with no parameters. So how do you know I'm not joking? Well, try and change the values. Now you see it says 18. So that was a proof that it'll actually, if you have a constructor with no arguments, then you don't have to put the 2 parameters. Actually, if you put the 2 parameters behind it, if I remember right, you'll get an error, and you do. So if your constructor is empty, no parameters. And also, you know, it can, like, what if you have 3 constructors with one has no arguments, but another one has like 3 arguments or something? Well, how do you know which one to choose? That depends on, you know, we can still use the rectangle object. So now what if you have a rectangle with these values and a rectangle with none of these parameters behind it, and hitting F9, you'll see that it says 12 only, and that's because we don't call the value of we don't tell it to print out the value of rect2 area. So that's what we're going to do right now. And now area. Now you see it says 12, and well, that's not hard to understand, because you know we have one object in which we're using the constructor with 2 arguments in it. So if you put these 2 arguments, okay, then it'll automatically know that, okay, choose this constructor right here, and then the one with no parameters, okay, choose this rectangle, or choose this constructor. So yep, that was your tutorial on constructors. Next time it'll be on something called a destructor, which actually has the opposite function of a constructor. So I'll see you in my next tutorial.